You open the message box and stare at the blinking cursor. It's a simple message. You've typed it before. Hey, can you help me with something? Your thumb hovers over the send button. Then stops. You reread the sentence and suddenly it feels heavier than it did 10 seconds ago. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they've already had a long day. Maybe this isn't serious enough. You erase the message. You tell yourself you'll figure it out. And you do this in places no one sees. At work, when you stay an extra hour instead of asking a colleague a quick question. At home, when something breaks and you spend hours watching tutorials instead of calling someone. In relationships, when something hurts but you say, it's fine, because you don't want to create tension. With friends, when you feel overwhelmed but reply, I'm good, just tired. From the outside, this looks like independence. Competence. Strength. From the inside, it feels like pressure that never fully turns off. You show up for everyone. You answer calls. You give advice. You listen for hours. You would never think twice about helping someone who asked you. So why does it feel so wrong when it's your turn? Why does asking for help feel heavier than the problem itself? Why does needing support feel like crossing a line you shouldn't cross? That question didn't start today. And the way you answer it quietly shapes your entire life. It rarely begins as a big decision. No one wakes up one day and decides they will never ask for help again. It happens in small, ordinary moments that don't feel important at the time. You forget something at the grocery store and decide not to text anyone to ask if they need anything. It feels easier to just guess. You're confused about a task at work and spend 40 minutes searching instead of asking a coworker for 5 minutes of clarity. You feel emotionally off and open a new tab, type your question into a search bar, and scroll through strangers' answers instead of telling someone who actually knows you. These moments feel practical, efficient, even responsible. They feel like proof that you can handle life. At first, figuring things out alone feels empowering. There is a quiet satisfaction in solving problems without depending on anyone. It gives you a sense of control. A sense of competence. A sense that you can trust yourself. And people reinforce this without realizing it. They call you independent. Reliable. Easygoing. Low maintenance. These words sound like compliments. They are compliments. And they slowly become part of how you see yourself. You become the person who doesn't need much. The person who doesn't create problems. The person who handles things. The more this identity grows, the harder it becomes to step outside of it. Because the moment you consider asking for help, a quiet discomfort appears. It feels like you are stepping out of character. Like you are breaking an unspoken agreement about who you are supposed to be. You notice it in small hesitations. You start writing a message and add extra words to soften it. Sorry to bother you. When you have time. No pressure. You ask indirectly instead of directly. You give the other person an easy exit before they even respond. Sometimes you don't send the message nenhuma. This pattern spreads into everyday life in ways that look normal from the outside. You carry heavy grocery bags alone instead of making 2 trips or asking for help. You assemble furniture by yourself while insisting it's almost done. You stay late finishing a project instead of delegating a small part of it. You drive yourself to appointments even when someone offers to go with you. Each situation feels small. None of them feel important enough to question. But together, they create a rhythm. You move through life assuming the responsibility is yours. Over time, this becomes your default setting. When something goes wrong, your first instinct is not who can help. It is how do I fix this? When you feel overwhelmed, your instinct is not who can I talk to. It is how do I push through this? And pushing through becomes your specialty. You push through stress. You push through uncertainty. You push through exhaustion. You become proud of how much you can carry. But pride and pressure often grow side by side. Because the more you prove you can handle things alone, the more you feel expected to keep doing it. Not just by others, but by yourself. Your own expectations quietly rise. You start to believe that needing help would mean failing to live up to the person you've become. The capable one. The dependable one. The one who doesn't fall apart. So even when life becomes heavier, you keep the same strategy. You work a little longer. Try a little harder. Sleep a little less. Worry a little more. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself you'll ask for help if things get really bad. But really bad keeps moving further away. Because you keep adapting. You keep stretching. You keep carrying. Until handling everything alone stops feeling empowering and starts feeling exhausting. That shift is quiet. It doesn't arrive as a dramatic moment. It arrives as a constant background pressure that never fully disappears. And once that pressure becomes normal, it's hard to imagine another way of living. At some point the pattern becomes automatic. You don't stop and think, should I ask for help? You skip straight to, I'll handle it. And the strange part is that this doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like responsibility. It feels like being an adult. You see it in everyday routines. Your computer stops working and you spend the entire evening trying to fix it instead of calling someone who could solve it in minutes. You're overwhelmed with work but say, I've got it, in meetings while your stomach tightens. You move apartments and insist you don't need help, then spend the night exhausted, surrounded by half-open boxes. You tell yourself it's easier this way. Faster. More efficient. But if it were truly easier, it wouldn't feel so heavy. There is a very specific tension that appears when the thought of asking for help enters your mind. It's subtle. A tightening in the chest. A hesitation in your fingers when you start typing a message. A small rush of anxiety that doesn't seem to match the size of the request. This tension isn't about the task. It's about exposure. Because asking for help reveals something you've learned to hide, your limits. And limits feel vulnerable. When you ask for help, you are saying, I can't do this alone. I don't know how to solve this. I need support. Those sentences are simple, but emotionally they carry weight. They open a door to a space where you are no longer fully in control of the outcome. You send the message and then you wait. Waiting is uncomfortable. Waiting means you don't know how the other person will respond. Waiting means you don't know if they will say yes or no. Waiting means you don't know if they will be available, annoyed, distracted, or happy to help. That uncertainty can feel louder than the problem itself. So your brain offers an alternative. Handle it yourself and skip the waiting. Skip the uncertainty. Skip the emotional exposure. And because your brain is designed to reduce discomfort, this alternative wins quickly. You see this in how you phrase requests when you do ask. You soften everything. Only if you have time. No worries if you can't. It's not urgent. I can figure it out if you're busy. You shrink the request before the other person even hears it. You lower the importance of your own need in advance. This isn't politeness. It's emotional self-protection. You are trying to make sure your request doesn't feel heavy. Because somewhere deep inside, there is a quiet fear, what if my needs are inconvenient? That fear changes how you behave long before you realize it exists. You hesitate before calling someone, even when you know they wouldn't mind. You replay conversations in your head before asking for something simple. You delay requests until the last possible moment, hoping the problem will solve itself. Sometimes you wait so long that asking becomes impossible. The task gets done alone, and the cycle continues. And each time this happens, your brain collects evidence. See? You handled it. You didn't need anyone. This is the right way to do things. But your body collects different evidence. It collects fatigue. It collects stress. It collects quiet pressure that builds over time. You begin to notice it in the evenings when your shoulders feel tight even when you're sitting still. You notice it when weekends don't feel restful anymore. You notice it when your mind keeps running through unfinished tasks at night. Carrying everything alone keeps you in constant motion, even when nothing urgent is happening. There is another layer that makes asking for help feel difficult. Identity. You've spent years becoming the person who handles things. People rely on you. People trust you. People describe you as capable and independent. These descriptions become part of how you see yourself. An identity is powerful. Once you see yourself as the strong one, stepping outside that role feels uncomfortable. Asking for help can feel like contradicting the story you've built about who you are. You might worry that people will see you differently. You might worry that they will think you're struggling more than you should be. You might worry that they will start worrying about you. So you stay consistent with the role. You keep handling things. You keep showing strength. You keep proving reliability. Even when you're tired. Even when the weight is growing. There is also a hidden comparison happening in the background. You see other people dealing with challenges. You see their responsibilities, their schedules, their stress. And you tell yourself your problems are smaller in comparison. You say things like, "They have kids. They work longer hours. They have bigger problems. They're going through more than me." Your needs shrink in comparison to everyone else's lives. But emotional needs don't work on a ranking system. They don't need to be the biggest to be real. Still, the comparison makes asking feel unjustified. You convince yourself you should be able to handle it alone. And so you do. Again and again. Until handling everything alone stops feeling like independence and starts feeling like isolation. Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable at the same time. Doing everything alone protects you from rejection. But it also protects you from support. And the longer this pattern continues, the harder it becomes to imagine another way of living. At first, nothing dramatic happens. Life keeps moving. You keep managing. You keep solving things on your own. From the outside, everything looks normal. You go to work. You reply to messages. You show up to plans. You keep responsibilities running. If someone asked how you are, the answer would sound honest, "I'm fine. Just busy." And you believe that answer, at least partially. Because you are functioning. You are coping. You are moving forward. But there is a quiet shift that happens over time when you become the person who never asks for help. Your world becomes smaller in invisible ways. Not physically smaller. Emotionally smaller. You begin to filter what you share. When someone asks, "How was your day?" you offer the short version. When someone asks, "What's new?" you choose the safe topics. When someone says, "You can tell me anything," you smile and say, "I know." And then you don't. You don't do this consciously. You don't sit down and decide to hide parts of your life. It happens gradually, in everyday conversations that feel too small to notice. Someone tells you about their stressful week, and you listen for 20 minutes. You nod, you ask questions, you offer support. Then they ask, "And you?" You pause for a second and say, "Oh, nothing much." That pause matters. Because in that pause, you decide, again, that your experiences don't need to take up space. You convince yourself the moment isn't big enough. The issue isn't serious enough. The timing isn't right. You'll talk about it later. Later becomes next time. Next time becomes another day. Another day becomes never. And this begins to change the way your relationships feel. You still spend time with people. You still laugh. You still talk. But the conversations stay on the surface. You know a lot about others. Others know less about you. Not because they don't care. Because you don't bring them into the deeper parts of your life. You become the listener. The supporter. The reliable one. You are present in everyone's life, but fewer people are present in yours in the same way. And the strange part is that no one notices this shift clearly. Not even you. It doesn't feel like loneliness at first. It feels like normal life. Until small moments begin to feel heavier than they should. You finish a long day and instinctively reach for your phone, then stop. You think about telling someone how tired you are, then decide it would sound like complaining. You think about sharing something that stressed you, then tell yourself it's already over. So you scroll instead. Or watch something. Or distract yourself. You move past the moment where connection could have happened. This repeats in many forms. You receive bad news and keep it to yourself until it feels old. You feel overwhelmed and say nothing until the pressure fades. You go through something difficult and only talk about it once it's already resolved. By the time others hear about your struggles, they are stories from the past. They are no longer experiences you are living through together. People don't get the chance to support you in real time. And without realizing it, you teach people a lesson: you don't need help. People learn this through repetition. They see you handle problems. They see you solve challenges. They see you move forward quickly. So they stop offering help as often. Not because they don't care. Because they assume you've got it. You have trained the people around you to trust your independence. And this is where the loneliness becomes more visible. Not loud loneliness. Not dramatic loneliness. Functional loneliness. You are surrounded by people. You have conversations. You have plans. You have connections. But the weight of your life still feels like something you carry alone. You notice it when something difficult happens and your first instinct is silence. You notice it when good news feels incomplete because you processed the hard parts alone. You notice it when you feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You start to feel like the emotional support in your relationships flows in one direction. Outward. From you to others. Rarely inward. And this doesn't make you resentful. That would be easier to recognize. Instead, it makes you quietly tired. Because giving support is energizing when it is balanced. But when it becomes your primary role, it slowly drains you. You become the stable one in crises. The calm one in conflicts. The organized one in chaos. Everyone appreciates this version of you. But very few people see the effort it takes to maintain it. You begin to feel pressure to stay consistent with the role. You don't want to suddenly become the person who needs too much. You don't want to disrupt the balance. You don't want to surprise people. So you keep showing up the same way. Even when you wish you could show up differently. Even when you wish someone would notice you are tired. Even when you wish someone would ask a deeper question. But people usually respond to the signals we give them. And the signal you have given for years is clear: I'm fine. I've got it. This is the quiet cost of never asking for help. Your life becomes efficient. Productive. Stable. But also heavier than it needs to be. Because humans are not built to carry everything alone, no matter how capable they are. There is a moment that rarely gets talked about. Not the moment you decide not to ask. Not the moment you push through alone. The other one. The moment someone notices. Someone looks at you and says, "Are you sure you're okay?" And for a second, something inside you freezes. Because now the door is open. You could tell the truth. You could say, "Actually, no." You could let the sentence come out. You could explain how tired you are. How stressed you've been. How heavy things feel lately. But something holds you back. It's not pride. It's not arrogance. It's not even denial. It's discomfort. Because if you let someone see that you're struggling, the image shifts. You're no longer just the capable one. You're not just the reliable one. You're someone who needs. And needing has never felt neutral to you. It has felt risky. Letting someone help you means letting them see where you feel unsure. It means letting them witness your confusion, your overwhelm, your limits. It means saying, without saying it directly, "I don't have this under control." For someone who built their identity around competence, that can feel destabilizing. You might notice it in subtle physical reactions. Your shoulders tense. Your voice gets lighter. You smile quickly and say, "No, I'm good." Even when you're not. There's another layer to this discomfort. If you allow someone to help, you enter into emotional reciprocity. They see you. They invest energy in you. They step toward you. And that creates closeness. Closeness is beautiful. But closeness also creates vulnerability. If someone supports you during a hard time, they become part of your emotional landscape. And if that connection changes later, it will matter more. So somewhere inside, your nervous system may have learned a simple equation. Less dependence equals less risk. When you handle everything alone, you minimize emotional exposure. If you fail privately. If you're overwhelmed, you process it alone. If you're hurt, you contain it. No one can disappoint you if you never leaned on them. But no one can hold you either. There is also something else that happens when you allow someone to help you. You lose a bit of control over how you're perceived. When you struggle privately, you can curate your image. You choose what others see. You choose when they see it. You choose how it's framed. When you let someone help you in real time, you don't control the narrative as tightly. They see the unfinished version. The uncertain version. The emotional version. And that can feel exposed. You may worry. What if they think I'm overreacting? What if they see me as fragile? What if they feel burdened? This is where the fear becomes circular. You don't ask for help because you don't want to be a burden. But you also don't let people help because you don't want them to feel responsible for you. So you remove yourself from the equation. You solve it alone. Again. And yet, there are moments when the weight becomes undeniable. You sit in your car after work and feel your chest tight for no clear reason. You lie in bed exhausted but unable to sleep because your mind keeps replaying everything you have to handle. You scroll through your contacts and feel a strange hesitation before reaching out. In those moments, the truth is close to the surface. You don't want to do everything alone anymore. But the habit is strong. Letting someone help requires a different kind of strength. Not the strength to endure. The strength to be seen. It requires trusting that someone can handle your reality without collapsing under it. And that trust is built slowly. Often, the first attempts feel awkward. You might share something small and immediately regret it. You might ask for a minor favor and then overanalyze their response. You might feel exposed afterward, wondering if you said too much. This discomfort is not proof that you shouldn't have asked. It's proof that you're stepping outside a long-standing pattern. Your nervous system needs time to learn that asking does not equal danger. That needing does not equal rejection. That support does not automatically turn into obligation. When you allow someone to help, you are not shifting your weight onto them entirely. You are redistributing it. And relationships are designed for redistribution. Not one person carrying everything. Not one person always rescuing. Not one person always enduring. Balanced connection requires movement in both directions. When you never ask for help, you freeze that movement. You keep the flow going outward, your support, your effort, your stability. But you block the inward flow. And over time, that creates imbalance. You may begin to feel unseen, even if you are appreciated. Because appreciation is not the same as being known. Being known requires exposure. And exposure feels vulnerable. This is why letting someone help can feel more uncomfortable than staying exhausted. Exhaustion is familiar. Vulnerability is not. But one drains you slowly. The other has the potential to restore you. The tension you feel when someone offers help is not weakness. It's the edge of growth. It's the moment where your old survival strategy meets a new possibility. And staying on that edge, even briefly, begins to change how you experience connection. Change rarely begins with a big moment. It begins with something quiet. Small. Almost invisible. A pause. The pause between realizing you are overwhelmed and automatically deciding to handle it alone. For years, that pause barely existed. The decision happened instantly. You pushed through. You figured it out. You carried the weight without thinking twice. Now the pause is slightly longer. Long enough for a new question to appear. Not who can fix this for me. Not who should I depend on. Just a softer question. Do I really have to do this alone? That question changes the direction of your attention. Instead of looking only inward for solutions, you allow your mind to consider the possibility of shared effort. Shared effort is different from dependence. Shared effort is different from losing control. Shared effort is different from becoming a burden. Shared effort simply means the weight is no longer carried by one person. And the first time you try this, it will feel unfamiliar. You will notice hesitation. You will reread the message before sending it. You will consider deleting it. You will wonder if it sounds unnecessary. You might type and erase several versions before the simplest one remains. Do you have a minute? It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel life-changing. But it is a new movement in a different direction. And when the response arrives, of course, something shifts quietly inside you. Not a big shift. Not a complete transformation. Just a small correction in the story you've been telling yourself. A new piece of evidence appears, maybe asking is not as heavy as I thought. This is how patterns change. Not through sudden breakthroughs, but through repeated small experiences that slowly rewrite old expectations. Each time you allow someone to help, your nervous system collects new data. You learn that the world doesn't collapse when you ask a question. You learn that relationships don't weaken when you share a problem. You learn that people often feel closer to you when you allow them to show up. Something surprising happens here. The same way helping others makes you feel useful and connected, allowing others to help you gives them the same experience. Support is not a one-way street. When you allow someone to help you move, they feel included in your life. When you share a difficult week, they feel trusted. When you ask for advice, they feel valued. What once felt like burden becomes connection. The roles begin to move in both directions. You are still capable. Still reliable. Still independent. But now you are also reachable. You begin to notice subtle changes. Conversations become deeper. Silences feel less heavy. Stress feels less isolating. Not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes shared. And sharing changes how weight is experienced. A heavy box feels different when two people carry it. The box does not shrink. The distance does not change. But the effort feels lighter because it is no longer concentrated in one place. Life works the same way. Responsibilities remain. Challenges remain. Uncertainty remains. But they no longer live only inside your mind. They exist in conversations. In shared moments. In small acts of support that slowly become normal. This is not about becoming someone who constantly asks for help. It is about becoming someone who no longer believes they must never ask. The difference is subtle, but powerful. You still solve problems. You still handle responsibilities. You still show strength. But now strength includes openness. Strength includes the ability to say, I could use some help with this. And the more often you allow that sentence to exist, the less heavy it feels. Until one day, asking for help becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a sign of weakness. Not a sign of failure. Just another way of being human.